Hey, for this case study, we did looked into Polaris, and obviously I put one of their side by sides here on the screen. But just kind of we analyzed where they manufacture, are there more efficient ways, and I'll talk into that and kind of why they do things the way they do. So going over the start. Here's a little overview. We're going to go over the outsourcing and insourcing, kind of why and what they do for each, cost savings, manufacturing, kind of how we arrived at our number, and what we think they should do, the sensitivity analysis, the things that we kind of considered and what changed the price, and then we're going to finalize it with just other key factors they should consider. So to start with the outsourcing, clearly this is why not all, but a lot of companies, especially in the manufacturing world, do their outsourcing. It's cost effective in terms of labor. You can get cheaper labor all over the world, notably in Mexico and China where Polaris is looking, as well as there's more competition. Obviously, if you just use U.S. companies, you're limiting the pool. If you open up to North America, South America, Asia, you're just opening up the numbers. Yeah, you might have to pay more other ways, but in terms of just pure price to manufacture, you're looking at the most cost-effective metric. A scale advantage, if you use one of these major suppliers, maybe they make for a competitor of yours, but because they make that same part, they can give you a discount on it. If they're making this pipe for this one company, maybe they already have the molds and stuff, so you can get it a little cheaper than if you only use it in the U.S. So again, just more competition in that sense. And furthering that, it allows scales of price. Some reason they might want to insource, though, would just be quality control. I mean, you can have eyes on easier. The proximity is obviously key. It's easier to customize when it's here. Like you can buy the part from out of country, but maybe if you wanted a certain color, instead of having to order 10 different parts from different countries, if you do it here for final assembly, you can go ahead and pick which color you want to paint it. And then lastly, and this is something that we obviously analyzed in this study, is the tariff discount. Especially right now, it's highlighted and has been the past year, just various tariffs and from different countries. So that's just another reason. It's like, oh, now once you assembled it here, and you can say that in your marketing too, it's made in America, even if you bought the parts from elsewhere. So in looking at the study, we started by trying to configure out the exchange rate, and you can see we had the kind of historical data, and from doing that we did the mean. I know there was some talk in the group discussion if we wanted to just like kind of withhold some of the years or use linear. I chose to just do a straight up mean of all these, a straight up standard deviation, nothing linear, just straight up. Production cost, you can see here we use like the price per unit in the different countries, and we converted all units to US currency. You can see what it would be for production costs in both. They're all three, the US, Mexico, and China, and this is again using every country's exchange rate, but just showing it in US dollar. So then we went and we found labor costs. Same thing, I did with a linear. I didn't want to do it like a logistical or anything like that for this model. So we just kept with a 13% interest for China and 7.9 for Mexico, as it's been in the past 8 years, and found what we thought the monthly wage rate would be for each year. And we used that to find our labor costs. And as you can see, it's much more expensive to build in the U.S., which is kind of why people want to look to outsource. Then we went with the transportation costs. We were trying to find how many units can fit on a truck, how much each mile costs in a truck, how would that cost, or if you have to do it from China, how much is it to ship? And in doing that, we kind of found who was the most economical in terms of transport costs. It's something we had found in this, and it was brought up in the class, but you can't fill half a truck, obviously, so you got to fill the whole truck. So even if there's one unit that has to go in a separate truck, that's a whole new one that has to go. And then lastly, for this, there was tariffs. Now, this isn't really how tariffs are today, per se, but we just used a 5% from China as a tariff. And so we added this up, and you can see in my chart here, it's just none of the U.S. or Mexico had any tariffs to add it to the cost. But that'll come in handy here on the analysis summary where we add in all these costs. So just by looking at it, you can see that China actually is the lowest price to build, to use, even if you have to pay the upfront capital investment and the tariffs. So it's only about $2.5 million cheaper than it would be to be in the U.S., and it's about $1.6 million cheaper to build in Mexico than the U.S. So right off the gate, it looks like China's the winner, and this is even applying the 10% discount rate for building in the U.S., for being U.S. made. So I went to this, and I kind of did each of these numbers. And even though it gave me China originally, I don't think China is who I would go with. I would stick with the U.S. If you increase tariffs to either Mexico or China, which obviously has been happening, then obviously the U.S. becomes more economical. As mileage rate increases, it's just going to make the U.S. more economical. U.S. and Mexico, that is. I guess China is just so far. If the unit footprint increased for any reason, you can't fit the 26 on a truck. So now you're looking at maybe you can only fit 20, maybe you can only fit 15. So just more trucks will have to be done, which means more miles, which means, again, making the U.S. is the right right path. Geopolitical issues, tariffs, if there's bans on it, kind of what we're seeing now of just like embargoes on people. And then currency valuation increases. We obviously increased what we estimated China's yuan and Mexico's pesos to be. We did not do that with the U.S. But if that were to go up, maybe then that would lean you one way or the other. Maybe that leans you more towards Mexico in that sense. And then the last one would just be humanitarian concerns. And I didn't know how to word this one, but really I just mean like if there's ethics issues of maybe cheap labor being exploited in certain places that people have issues with, or the laws change in those areas, maybe what you can previously pay them for labor and to work and build something you can't anymore. So that would raise the price, and it'd be a shame to pay that upfront capital investment in any of those places and then have that now be just for nothing because the price per labor has just gone way up. And then lastly, just some other qualitative factors that we want to consider is brand perception. Something like Polaris, especially to me, is more just like outdoorsy, like do things, get things done, maybe have land, maybe you hunt. People that do that kind of stuff obviously love made in America. That's such a big thing. So I think the brand perception is something major to consider when looking to outsource. It's like maybe if you're going to save $20 million, like a third of your budget, then you'd be looking to move. But if you're only saving $2.5 million on a $50 million budget annually, it's like, what's the point in that? Proximity to dealers and customers. You want to be right there in case there's a big order or something. Obviously, you're just saving that. It removes the risk of political issues, as we talked about tariffs and such. Environment risk, you're kind of with where you're at. And if there's issues in your home country, then it's going to affect the deals anyways and the manufacturing process anyways, because the factories are down, but so are the receiving points. But if it's in China, now you have to worry about twice as many or even more environmental issues, because if there's a tsunami or something that takes out a shipping port, well, now you can't get it from China. Or what if there's something like trying to get from Saudi Arabia stuff right now, you can't go through the Strait of Hormuz, so now it's like something else to just consider for the political and environmental risk. Intellectual property, there's differences in making stuff in China or the U.S. In China, stuff just gets copyrighted, and there's nothing they really do about a lot of that. But in the U.S., there's much more strict laws on that. And then lead time, just if you make it locally, it'll get here quicker. It really shortens that line of best fit.